Welcome to the mortal realms. Grab your hammer so we can clear a path through the chaos and forge our own narratives in the age of Sigmar. Your allies through the realm gate this episode are...
My name is Paul, and I'm holding out for a hero!
And this is Eric. Believe it or not, it's just me. In this episode, we are discussing Games Workshop's Warhammer Heroes campaign, how to nominate your Warhammer heroes, and maybe some ideas about who to nominate in your local community. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead at this time to subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to us on a podcast, think about going over and leaving us a little review on iTunes so that people can find out what we're doing. How you doing tonight, Paul?
Doing pretty good. Got a nap in, so yeah. Nice and rested.
It's that hibernation time of year, huh?
Yeah, well, my youngest fell asleep on my chest, so it was like, oh, I have to sleep because my child is sleeping, right? Works great.
I definitely need excuses if I'm going to take a nap, and that sounds like a pretty good excuse.
Exactly.
So what we're doing tonight in this episode is, and we talked about this a little bit from the last episode, is we're breaking out our different phases that we've historically done, all the phases in an episode. And we're just letting ourselves kind of explore different things that are happening in the community, fit that into one of the 4 phases. And tonight we're working the community phase, and it seemed apropos to do this review of the community heroes. Now, it's kind of interesting. We used to have a hero phase that we would do in the early years of the early episodes of the podcast. We're only on episode 19 right now. And what we would try and do was highlight somebody in the community or an individual or that sort of thing, something somebody was doing, or also talking about how we could get more people into the hobby and kind of introduce ourselves and introduce other people to the hobby. So here's our hero phase is getting wrapped right into our community phase, and this one has both community and heroes in the title. So, or it's part of the community and it has to do with heroes. So, all right, let's get into talking about the community phase. And in the community phase, we talk about the news and events that are significant to the AOS community. So, Paul, this came out about a week and a half ago. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
And have you had a chance to look through the kind of the Warhammer community? So Warhammer-community / Warhammer Heroes. Have you had a chance to look through that website yet? Yeah,
I have. It's a pretty nice setup. They have a lot of details about what exactly they're kind of going for, and it's a nice setup. I know they had talked about this kind of a while ago.
When did you first hear about it?
I don't remember, but I think it was probably like 2, 3, 4 months ago. So not nearly as long as like the last Adepticon, but I remember them mentioning that this was going to be a thing. And I was like, all right, well, how do I get on and start nominating people? And they were like, oh, we're going to get to it. We're gonna launch a campaign. So that campaign has been launched. And it's a really cool idea that really just, it seems to reward those people who are actually going the extra mile, right? Instead of saying that Warhammer is my hobby, it's more recognition of people who say Warhammer is our hobby, right? Yeah. And they prove that by taking extra time and doing extra things to help other people to start the hobby, continue in the hobby, just enjoy the hobby as well, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Is it's the hero is somebody who's not just looking at their own hobby. Like all of us are trying to move our own hobby forward, but they talk a little bit about event organizers, whether you're a TO or a NEO. They talk about, like you said, there's some people in our community that have done painting classes or escalation leagues. People who are running clubs or gathering people together on a regular basis and trying to kind of get people moving. And I mean, we've had a number of people in our community that have done that from time to time, and it's throughout the seasons it can change. Maybe who's taking up the mantle and who's trying to get people together, who's trying to get people playing, getting people painting and doing that sort of thing. Would you? I mean, do you think there's anybody? I mean, what other kinds of? I mean, are there any people? I guess you'd say that you thought about, or have you nominated anybody yet?
I haven't nominated anybody yet because I'm kind of just sorting through my head and being like, all right, I don't want to just like start spamming things. Right? There are a lot of people that come to mind.
Oh yeah.
For me personally, that I'm like, I could totally nominate this person. I could totally nominate this person. Right? When they first had mentioned that this was going to be a thing, my first idea was like, oh, Tony from War Scroll. Right? Like, to me, he fit exactly what they were talking about. He's somebody who's taken his hobby and helped us to do our hobby by doing it, by making the War Squirrel Builder. And he was somebody that actually had been recognized at the last Adepticon. When they did their preview, they brought him in to the preview, had him stand up, recognized that he specifically was the one contributing. So even though this campaign has already, it's the initial beginning of this campaign, I feel like they've already started the process of like actually just saying, look, these people make a difference, right? And for Tony, it's somebody that pretty much anybody who plays Warhammer right now for AOS is definitely going to appreciate and understand. And even those people who play 40K are like, give us what Tony gave you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a real clear example of somebody that'd be like, oh, this is great. But what they seem to be looking for as well is those people who you're not going to hear about, those people who only people who live in a local area can say, oh, actually, yeah, it's this guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, I mean, it is good because I think there are, like you mentioned, there's a lot of people in our communities that, anybody who's on Twitter playing following Age of Sigmar or other Games Workshop stuff, 4K, etc. I mean, we've got a pretty active community, and I mean, you can throw a rock, and hit somebody who's doing some pretty amazing stuff. So, I mean, whether it be Tyler Mangold doing he's been running a blog for many years now, and in addition to that, the Endless Desert battle tome that he created for the Tomb Kings, just a cool, inspiring project he was working on and completed. Obviously, you've got a number of event organizers all around the country, some that are doing stuff as big as Adepticon, like Alex Gonzalez. I know you're going to be running, the narrative at Adepticon this next year. Aaron Bostian has been running narrative events since, AOS, probably the first narrative event guy. Neo running events out of Nova, and so I mean, and then you've got a ton of people. Ben Curry, obviously, for his podcast, but the Grand Alliance forums. There's just so many people that have been doing stuff globally. And when we started doing the podcast a couple of years ago, that was our goal, is try and connect. There wasn't something locally, so we were kind of trying to grab a hold of the more global population that was still around and doing stuff. But in that time, like, we've really enjoyed the amount of local activity. It benefits us. It's one thing to kind of reach out and be online and doing this, but unless you can get on a table and play, that's really kind of where it feels the most fulfilling, I guess. And so we've had a couple of local guys kind of step up and do some things. Like Davis ran an escalation, kind of a series of events to try and get people building armies towards a larger count, and that sort of thing. So,
I think there's another interesting point here that's not specifically listed, but what I really enjoy about this idea is that it makes you actually have to think, if you're looking through this and being like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, to actually process and be like, who has made a difference, right? Like, who has made a difference to my hobby? Who has made a difference to our local community's hobby, right? It's instead of focusing everything on necessarily playing games or, the best army or the best painted, right? Like, it really helps to bring out another aspect of our hobby that we don't really talk about that much. Right? Like, everybody likes to have, when you're playing D&D, you have to have somebody who organizes everything, right? With Warhammer, it's a little bit easier usually because everybody's bringing something, right? So instead of going to a D&D house and they run the campaign for you and they've got all the stuff, and then you leave and you might have a figure, you might have some dice, right? With Warhammer, with AOS, with Shadespire, like, you're usually bringing an army with you. You're bringing half of the game. And so I think sometimes because everybody's forced to bring something with them, a little bit of that appreciation can sometimes get lost because it is such a personal thing to play with your models, right? It's a personal thing to paint with your stuff. And this kind of also just brings that very much back into focus and asks us to really think about what it is that we appreciate that people have done for us in our community.
Yeah, back in 8th edition, I mean, even though we're all, meeting and playing, Ben Cones would have been, somebody I would have nominated for community hero, because he was just having that person who kind of beats the drum, says, all right, who's coming out this week? Boom, boom, boom. Who's bringing their army this week? What are we playing? What points are we playing? How are we doing this? And having somebody who just kind of keeps that energy going. That's a hard job. Even that kind of small bit is a hard thing to kind of keep up and keep the community going. Now, so I guess we can talk a little bit about maybe what this entails. So let's talk about how we nominate somebody. Well, actually, let's talk through. Before we get to how, let's get through on the website, and I'll pop this up real quick. I had it up a minute ago, but I'll pop it up again, and we can look through it. This is the Warhammer Hero community page, and it talks a little bit about just what they want you to do. I mean, this is as you were just putting it before we got on. Is this video is a little bit of just an advertisement for what they're doing, and it's dead simple. There's here's the nomination form, and in case you're curious, you can't hit this button itself. There's a little underlined word for here. This image being a button would be very nice. But on here as well, there's a couple of things. There's an FAQ, and there's also a terms and conditions. So let's look through the FAQ a little bit because these are going to be. So for the very first question, I'm pretty awesome. Can I nominate myself? What's the answer, Paul?
No, I don't think that's the idea here.
No. This is definitely not a selfish endeavor. This is about celebrating other people. And so, here's the thing. What's interesting too is I think one of the things that on Twitter, online with the community, I think there's quite a bit of skill or practice of giving props or accolades, high fives, likes and shares, etc., to people in the community who are visible and are doing this stuff. Like, there's lots of ways that we're already saying, hey, you're cool. Hey, everybody else, look at this person and what they're doing. That's awesome. But this is definitely a much more official capacity from the company itself. And it's a ceremony. And the only way, this becomes legitimate is if people are being nominated by others, right? It's because it's kind of an honor system, right? So.
Well, in both ways.
Yeah. Can I nominate more than one person? Heck yeah. So I've got a list, and I've kind of been putting it out there. We'll get to this next question, because can I nominate the same person more than once? It says if you'd like to, but winners are not chosen by the quantity of the nominations, but by the quality of their deeds. So this is really important, I think, in that. Certainly, some of the people I've mentioned, I know, Vince and Tom from Warhammer Weekly. Vince has puts up videos all the time and is constantly welcoming the community. Steve Herner's huge in hobby and runs the Holy Wars and Holy Havoc events. So those people who serve a larger community are going to get a high quantity of nominations. Here, what I think is important is when you're doing the nomination is that you are you're being honest, but be full in what you're communicating about what the person has done and how that's impacted your hobby, right? So I think I can't emphasize enough that this isn't about how many nominations. We'll show you the form in a little bit. It's not a big form, right? So it's not the quantity. I mean, you could kick out a whole bunch really quickly if you wanted to. It's about the quality. So taking the time to give a recommendation for somebody that is a quality recommendation. Unfortunately, Games Workshop staff members cannot be nominated. So I actually thought about this. Our local GW store has the guy who manages that, Tony, been pretty fantastic for our local community, getting people involved. Sure. I go in there and I brainstorm some of my conversion ideas, and I mean, he's all too eager to sell me two kits to make one, but he just takes the time and is always thinking through stuff, and it's a lot of fun. So you cannot nominate a Games Workshop staff member, but if you do have local game store people who are really helping out Age of Sigmar, who are doing a lot there, because some of these clubs could be, a store owner that's trying to get people playing, etc. So yeah, Games Workshop staff member no, to Warhammer store no. How will we find out who has been chosen? Looks like January the 1st winners will be announced. That's interesting. Do you think that so we'll get to like when these award ceremonies are. I wonder if that has to do with maybe there's going to be two. Well, let's just do that right now. There's going to be two events. There's one award evening in the UK at Warhammer Fest on Friday, the 11th of May, 2018. And then the US award evening is going to be at Adepticon sometime between the 22nd and 25th of March, 2018. And so since that's in March, I guess the thought I had was, are they going to nominate just the US ones that are going to be at Adepticon in January maybe, and save the other nomination for closer to Warhammer Fest?
I think what it also could imply is that this will be an ongoing program, right? Instead of saying, oh, we're going to have this award ceremony and that's it, right? There might be some intention to keep this as an ongoing
so that, or kind of a segment on the Warhammer community site where they can constantly be sharing those kind of the people who have been nominated, who they've selected.
I think that's a possible thing, but also the other idea I think is, if you've got 15,000 emails, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to go through all 15,000 emails and keep everything else running, right away in January. So you might be like, oh, well, we're going to be able to announce these 5, 10, however many people, right? We're going to be able to announce the first winners in January, and then we'll sort it out. We'll read all the ones that were from the US before we get to March, right? We'll read, or whatever, right? Like there might be some kind of backup in there just to make sure that everything does get read, right? I think one of the things about that is this whole program is that it's having the players tell the company who's doing good, right? It's having the players tell the company. I mean, the other thing that this does is it tells the company what's important to other players about other players that makes them think that they're valuable, right? Like, because it doesn't say these are the things that a Warhammer hero is, right? It's not a bullet list of has to be doing this, has to be doing that, has to be doing this, right? They're really kind of crowdsourcing, as it were, a bit of what it means to actually be a community leader, what it means to be a hero to someone, right? Like, I mean, it could, for somebody, like I could easily see a lot of Warhammer hero nominations, and this is not true for me, but for a lot of people being like, it's my dad, right? I started playing Warhammer when I was 5 because my dad played Warhammer. We've been playing Warhammer together. We go to tournaments together, right?
Yeah.
Even when I went into my dry period, when I went into college, he kept my miniatures and he gave them back to me, right? Like,
did you say dry period going into college?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's part of what this is about too, right? Like that trying to actually think about and understand what people are looking for and what people get out of the hobby.
Well, it's interesting you say that too, because in one of the things that they're getting into is organized play. And while there are, from what I've seen of other organized play, there may be some value in knowing who some of these local heroes are, if they may be interested in running some of these organized play or other kinds of events on a local level. That could be really interesting if they're, because I know, like, with Dungeons and Dragons 5e, some of their D&D adventures are kind of local weekly gaming, and I think that they have a network of DMs that they kind of serve content to. So that could be something that they're looking to get in. But I like what you said too, is like, who are the different types of heroes, who are the different types of people influencing, getting people into the game or getting them playing the game and buying more models, etc. What behaviors and activities are they doing, and how can Games Workshop support that, right? Through new materials and products, or scheduling, or communications, or advertising of some sort, or supplements. As it'd be cool to get those kind of, I don't know, just have some other kind of tool that gets people at the end of the day. I mean, that person who's organized is often doing it for just some thanks and pats on the back. So certainly at the face value, giving them something to be proud of is an obvious. But there's a lot of ways that you could hopefully reward these individuals from at the micro level to the macro level. So, how will these Warhammer heroes be chosen if not by quantity of votes? A select panel of experts from the Warhammer community team and other areas of Games Workshop will pick the winners. We'll then contact them and give them the great news. So here's a couple of things here. Just make sure you know their full name when you nominate them. Maybe even drop in an email address if you have it. Or you make sure you put your own email address in there, because if they do decide to award the individual you've nominated, they need to get a hold of you in order to,
in case they can't get a hold of them.
Yep. It says, how many Warhammer heroes are there going to be? And their answer is, well, that all depends on how many awesome people you tell us about. If we think they're worthy champions, we'll select them. Simple as that. Now, I'm not worried. I don't think this is a negative or bad thing for Games Workshop to be doing at all. But I do worry about there being people who get nominated, and maybe here's the question, is like, worthy champions, is that, how minute is that, right? If this is truly to be about local heroes, how much do our local heroes need to do in order to be, we've talked about a few kind of global or community-wide heroes that seem like they've obviously done worthy stuff. Yeah. What's worthy enough? And so I kind of hope they go, it's small enough to be worthy to hit these local heroes. Yeah.
Well, I think it seems very much, number one, it seems very much like a GW statement, right? If you've applied to work for them at any point, they want a letter asking you why you should get the job, right? They don't necessarily want to look at your application. They want a letter, and then they're going to judge the letter, right? It's almost a college application process, right? Yeah. You've got a 4.0 and you've got all this extracurricular, right? You're probably going to have a really good chance of getting into that college, right? Yep. But they're still going to read every letter. And so it's, how many, how small? Yeah, I would imagine there's going to be a couple people that are included. I think maybe it might be more in the UK for the smaller ones, just because there's probably going to be a lot of people who they actually know, right? Like some of these nominations, you can be a GW employee to nominate people, right? I imagine there's a couple people that just come to Warhammer World every week and play, and people like those guys, right? Like they come to Warhammer World, they do all this kind of stuff, right? And I imagine if the statement is in there, if we think they're worthy, we'll select them. There's going to be at least a couple that you've never heard of before, right? And I think there's going to be a couple who, there's quite possibly going to be a couple who you never will hear of either, right? It's like, I can think of one guy in particular, Marty Gaska. I don't think you've ever met him or heard of him, Eric, but he was the guy who started running fantasy championships at Adepticon right away. And so he used to run all these primers and invite people to his house and have 30, 40-man tournaments. just to play test the rules for Adepticon, and he ran it for forever. And then he just kind of was like, well, you know, I'm going to step out of the way, and Alex is going to step in the way. But he still shows up. He's still there. Like, he's one of those people that, like, for me especially, he's very much a personal hero. First tournament I ever went to was in his house. Right? It wasn't actually at a game store. It wasn't, and it was a primer for Adepticon. You know, like, for me, he is one of those people that really defines the hobby. I mean, I walked in his house, and he's just got so many armies and so much stuff going on, and, like, just literally opened up his life, right?
Yeah.
To those playing Warhammer, but he hasn't done it for a while. It's not that he's not interested in it. It's just that, you know, like, that's not what he's doing.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, if he got nominated, they wouldn't know who he is.
Sure.
Necessarily. But, you know, I think there's hopefully, I would hope that there would be people like that, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
so,
I hope that here's another reason to make your nomination really thought out. In that, it'd be cool to hear some of these stories, right?
Exactly. Right.
If people are nominated, I want to know why they were nominated. And so, I mean, Paul, if you do nominate him, you know, tell a good story, write a few paragraphs, and talk about what he meant in your, you know, for your hobby, so that when if GW's willing to go back that far, even though they're maybe not on the radar for Age of Sigmar, you know, that if they say, hey, here's this person, that there's a story to tell, so that we can know about them. And I think you were right though too. In I think they want to do these stories, you know, on the community page and inspire other people. I mean, when we did the Coalescence thing last year with the Neo group, I mean, our whole thing there was just to try and inspire people to get into the seat, get in the cockpit, and drive the plane, right? And I think that's what they want to do here too. So, I mean, that's a very good point, that there's going to be some people that we've never heard of, but when you're making these nominations, tell a story, and tell a good story about this person. Don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't make shit up. But yeah.
Well, I think the other thing to note is that when you have this many people nominating too, right?
Yeah.
Even if you know that somebody nominated you, right? It's not a guarantee. It's not a right. It, you know, and if you don't get chosen, it's not like oh, you're not doing a good job, right? Like, it by necessity, I think it has to be a smaller group of people, and there's only so many they can do. So it's, you know, I think at its heart, what this is intended to be a recognition of those who have done it. And even if the recognition is just that, you know, somebody nominated you,
yep,
right? That's an awesome thing, that somebody said, yeah, actually, I'm going to take the time and write down about why this person was important to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's actually an amazing thing, because how many people actually sit down and do that about anything?
Well, and I mean, that's another good point, is that, you know, if you nominate somebody, don't be anonymous about it. Like this form just says, you know, hey, it doesn't alert that person, I don't think, that you've nominated them. But why not, you know, just let somebody, if you do put somebody down on this as a nomination, let them know.
Yeah.
And say, hey, thanks for the work you did. Games Workshop is having this nomination thing for Warhammer Heroes. I put your name in, and I talked about this. You know, thank you for doing that. I mean, I think that's pretty flattering in and of itself. And so if you don't get another accolade after that, if you don't actually make it to get a medal or whatever, it's pretty satisfying. So
yeah, I mean, it is about the community, right? And that act in and of itself, especially speaking to the person, is about building up that community.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually probably does more good to let them know that and be vocal about it than whether or not they win a medal or not, because then they're going to keep doing it, you know. So yeah, I mean, there's a big push back to the D&D community of, like, you know, thank your DM, right? You know, make sure that you're giving a gift to your DM, because they're the person that's running a bunch of stuff. They're taking time out of their week beyond what, you know, the gathering time, to come up with stuff that you're having fun with. So I mean, these are community leaders, these are our game masters, these are our realm masters, all that kind of stuff. Hint: Christmas coming up, you're realm master. No, but I mean, like, it's it's good to say thank you and do it, in a bigger way. So,
For sure.
all right, we got a couple more things on here then.
Yeah.
So it says, where am I? Presented one. All right. Can I swap my? All right. So what happens if I've been nominated but cannot make it to one of the award evenings? It says that would be a real shame, and we'll try to help you in any way we can so you can attend. But if you really can't, you can either wait and attend a future ceremony, or we can post your medal out to you. Either way, we'll work it out.
Now, here's one actual critique I have.
Yeah.
All right. So this is just going to be a small one, but if you can't make it to the award ceremony, I really wish that GW would keep that email address of the person that nominated you and send the medal to that person so that person can give it to you, right? To kind of tie in that community, right? I mean, getting a medal in the mail is cool, right? Having that recognition is cool. Getting it from the person who nominated you would probably be a lot more impactful to me.
Yep.
So my one critique on this whole thing is if you can't make it to the event and you're going to send it out, send it to the person who nominated them.
Yep.
Right. Make it a personal thing.
That's cool. I like that idea. Can I swap my medal for other goodies or cash or product? It says, no, you can't. These medals are super special in a unique way of us recognizing your awesome contribution to the Warhammer community. I do like, so one of the things I was with the Armies on Parade this year, at least locally, I don't know if that's everywhere, they didn't give out the medals like they have in past.
Yeah.
And I was a little worried that they were just going to be Armies on Parade medals.
Yep.
But you can, they do have a picture of the medal on the Warhammer community, Warhammer Heroes page, and it's pretty cool. It's got the Warhammer Heroes kind of banner that you will see if you look at the graphics. It has a two-headed eagle, the Aquila, but not the Aquila itself, more like folded wing kind of thing, but with the Sigmar hammer in front of it and the Sigmar halo above the eagle's heads, and with a red, what's that called?
Ribbon,
lanyard,
yeah,
type thing. So that's pretty cool.
I want a space for you to put it around your neck.
Hey, they could totally do that at Adepticon or Warhammer Fest. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibilities. So then, what will an invite to the awards evening cover? And it says it will cover your entry to the overall event. So if you are coming to Adepticon and you get are awarded this, it'll pay for your, if you're already going, then probably not a big deal. But if you're not planning on going, they'll pay for you to get into the event. There's going to be a meal for all of the those that are recognized, and you get a +1. You get a medal and some other goodies. And all you have to do is get there and take care of your own hotel accommodations. So, that's all the information. The last, I guess, thing to check out is we want you to know exactly how to do it. Just again, like this isn't about. This medal would be cool, but I think this is such a great way to just get the community saying thank you to each other.
Yep.
So, like I said, if you're on the page, there's a button called, or there's a banner called nomination form, and above the banner, not the image itself.
You did miss one cool thing here.
What's that? What did I miss?
All right, so we were looking at the FAQ, but if you go back to the other page, it says they'll receive a special medal, a T-shirt, a certificate of awesomeness. Like, who doesn't want that?
Okay.
But the other cool thing is a permanent place on the Warhammer Heroes Roll of Honor. So the name of each Warhammer hero recorded for all eternity on a mighty plaque mounted at Warhammer World.
Nice.
That's pretty awesome.
Good catch.
Right? Yeah. I don't know. To me, Warhammer World is one of those like amazing places.
Yeah.
I've been once, but yeah, and you have as well, right? And so it's like
I got to go there for like an hour.
Yeah, I was there for about 5. So yeah.
Nice. So no, that's cool. So yeah, it's a medal, a T-shirt, commemorated forever on a plaque at Warhammer World. All that stuff is pretty cool, and then food. You get food as well.
Yeah, food is awesome.
All right, so let's go to the form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a Google Docs form. You've probably been familiar with it. They give you kind of references back to the things that you looked at, the Warhammer Heroes page, the FAQ, and the terms and conditions. So you can go look up those things. And then all it is, so first it's, you put in your email address, again, so that in case they can't contact the person directly, they can get a hold of you. Your full name, the full name of the Warhammer hero you're nominating, and then just what makes them a Warhammer hero. It says, let us know your nominee is why your nominee is a champion or an ambassador for the Warhammer hobby. The more details, the better. And I would say the better story you can tell, the better, because we're drawn to stories. We're drawn to kind of those epic tales. So if you can tell a really good story about a meaningful story about what they contributed, there's a good chance that they'll be high on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they just have a thing that says that you have permission to provide the information above, that you're you, or that you're the guardian of the person above, etc. So
yeah.
And
then you can also send a copy of the responses to yourself as well. Right. So cool. Another one of those, like, you can actually talk to the person about what specifically you wrote down. So also a cool idea.
And then you click a button that says you're not a robot and hit submit. So like I said, you can do many, many of these. Think about everybody who's encouraged you in your hobby. I think that you're more than welcome to stretch, across the world and say, hey, this person made this army or did this thing that was really cool. I think that they're really going to be looking towards either just super meaningful local stuff that's heart-wrenching, or well, I don't want to say that. Again, I can't anticipate who they're going to pick or why they're going to pick them. I think at the end of the day, nominate who you think you'd like to nominate to give them some recognition, even if it's just to let them know, hey, you got nominated because what you do matters to me, So, any other thoughts that you have about this Warhammer hero business?
I think it's probably one of the best things that they've done to engage the community, especially since they've been engaging the community. I think they've actually used the terminology to be like a Warhammer hero before.
Yeah.
And the terminology was, if you get your local store to put GW product in the store or something like that, we'll send you a free battalion. Right. And this is a lot more in mind of what I think actually qualifies as a Warhammer hero, right? Like, is if you've done something for the community instead of just buying products, instead of just advocating, right? So it's cool to have that term, I don't know, kind of redeemed, as it were. So
the really important piece of information too is that the Warhammer the nominations for this, is there a closing date on these?
Yep, December 31st, midnight December 31st is what it said.
Yeah, so that's not to say they won't open it up again sometime later, but I don't know. They may get a couple of years worth of stuff out of this.
Yep, you never know. There's a lot of content. Just the one kind of final thing I will have on that too, is its closing date for nominations is midnight GMT, Sunday the 31st.
Okay.
So for us in the Midwest, that's 6 p.m. If you're on the East Coast, that's 7 p.m. If you're in Mountain Time, it's 5. And if you're on Pacific Time, it's 4 p.m. If you're in Hawaii, you suck. Also, it's like 3 p.m., I think.
So is that you suck, just a personal vendetta against...
Yeah. I've been to Hawaii. It's amazing. You're a jerk for being able to live in Hawaii.
Oh, all right. So there, you got all those times. You don't have any excuse. And if you're in the U.S., you can finish up your hobby nominations, your hero nominations, and still get out to ring in the new year. So there's no excuses. So thank you, Paul, for taking some time and chatting with me about this. I think, like you said, pretty important thing, really cool thing that we get to do in the community. and looking forward to participating and putting out my as many nominations as I can for people that have inspired me. So then it is time for our reforging. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and like it, comment below. If you're all listening on iTunes, leave us a review. And we've mentioned it before. If you're listening to us on your local podcast, December 31st, we're going to be changing over to a different podcast feed. And we've got some things, we've made some changes and done some stuff to redirect. But if by chance, after the 31st, there will be no more episodes being uploaded to this feed. And if you're not getting any episodes in January, then you're going to need to move over to Podbean. And we'll post up some more stuff. We'll have an announcement, and we'll put some stuff out on social media as well. I'm Eric. You can find me at Stone Monkey Gamer on Twitter. And Paul, where can we find you?
I am at PJ Shard on Twitter as well.
Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to talking to you next time.